Well, hey everybody, how you doing today? I thought it would be a great time to sit back and to talk about things that aren't as important to me anymore as a musician. And I think we get wrapped up in our head sometimes about these ideas and these beliefs that we have, and we just get stuck in them, and then we're unable to change. And sometimes it can really damper your creative process. It can damper, just the way you look at everything, right? And so I thought it would be a good idea just to discuss some of these things from a musician's standpoint and look at some of the things that I no longer care about. And I wonder if a lot of you might happen to feel the same way. And when I first started playing music, one of my guitar heroes that really got me involved into wanting to play guitar was Ace Frehley from Kiss. And another one was Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. These guys they've influenced so many people into playing. Well, and the one thing that these two guys had in common was they both played Gibson Les Pauls. And so when I started learning and I started, getting into the guitar, and I knew that it was something I was going to continue to do, that, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And, it was getting past those points to where my fingers hurt and everything, and I could start playing some chords and stuff started sounding a little bit like music. I gravitated, I gravitated towards Gibson Les Pauls, of course. And so when I was younger, that's all I played, whether it was a real Gibson Les Paul. When I first started, I definitely could never afford like a real Gibson, so I always played the Epiphone models. But that's all I played was Gibson Les Pauls because I was trying to, I don't know, I guess emulate, the people that influence you, that inspire you to play. And so I thought, oh man, if I just, these Les Pauls, that's where it's at. And I played Les Pauls for many years. And as I got older and my playing improved and I started playing in cover bands and original bands, especially in the cover bands, because we played 4 or 5 hours on the weekends and a lot of times on Wednesdays too. So that's, about basically 3 nights a week playing 4 or 5 hours a night. And then of course, you had band practice, on the days that you weren't playing. But those guitars were so heavy and my shoulder would hurt. And it was an awful lot of pain. And I kept working through it. I just thought, well, that's probably, that's just the way it goes. That's just the dues you have to pay. And if you want to sound good, you gotta have the right equipment. And as I've gotten older, I veered away from that. And so I'm no longer a brand loyalist. You know what I mean? Like, I'm no longer tied down to Gibson Les Pauls. In fact, of all my guitars here, I don't even have a Gibson Les Paul at all anymore. The only Les Paul body model guitar that I have is my Hagstrom Ultra Swede, which is right now in disrepair and needs to be fixed. But I haven't owned a Gibson Les Paul in many years. Not that they're a bad brand or anything like that. I do like them, and I will get another one soon. But when I let go with that image that I had in my head of, what you needed for equipment, it really opened up the doors to me. And, I got into Fenders and I love a Fender Telecaster. I have a couple Telecaster models, but I no longer care like if it's a high end Fender. I own a couple Squires. I love them. The Squire model from from Fender is great. And of course, I bought this guitar. This is an Axis, Sterling by Music Man, and I bought this guitar because I had one before, like in a purple color, and the necks on these things are amazing. Kind of that Eddie Van Halen neck, and it fits my hands perfectly. And I wanted a guitar, and I kid you not, because I wanted something that I could put stickers on, and you can see this thing is covered, and it's covered on the back as well. I got my ACDC, my Rob Zombie, Iron Maiden, Twisted Sister, Deftones, Led Zeppelin, the Sex Pistols, and just all of the music that I am inspired by. Which brings me into my next topic of things that I'm moved past and no longer consider relevant, and that is locking down into a particular genre. So growing up, I was kind of a weird kid. I mean, I've always had this eclectic taste in music. I liked everything, right? I liked blues. I like Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, you know, Poison, Guns N' Roses. I loved a lot of rock and roll, but I also loved George Thorogood. I liked the band Yes. I loved Heart. I loved Stevie Nicks, Tina Turner, and I liked all of the old R&B artists. I just loved so many different styles of music, and I did listen to a lot of classic rock. But when I was playing, I had it in my head that because my influences, I guess, were like Led Zeppelin and the bands that I had just mentioned in Kiss, and I just figured out that I had to be, or just thought anyway, that I had to be a rock and roll guitar player. And so when I was in like my own bands, doing original music, it was nonstop rock and roll. I mean, it was just nonstop rock driving music. Sometimes it would be a little bit heavier, but I never veered, away from that. And then, of course, being in the cover bands, we did everything. We from classic rock to, some of the more crossover country music, I guess, back in the day when country music just started making that shift to blurring the line between, country and pop music. And we would do that, but most of my music was all just based around one genre, hard rock. And now that I'm older and I do love playing so much music, when I'm sitting here at home in my studio and I'm recording, like I'll record piano pieces, atmospheric pieces, a lot of instrumentals that are slow moving, not that hard rock driving stuff. And I enjoy that. And it's so freeing not to be locked in a genre anymore, to where you can experiment and, learn new chords like major seventh chords and minor seventh chords, and start to sound a little bit, jazzier, and a little bit of funk music and whatever else you want to throw in there. It definitely expands, you know, you as a creative person. It just expands your mind and just allows you to explore. And that's what it's all about, I think. And so those things have been great. So, getting rid of this gear phobia, I guess, or, you know, brand identity has helped a lot. And getting rid of the genres, I have, let's see, well, I have this as a Music Man, right? I've got a Fender Telecaster. I've got couple Squire Telecasters, a Fender Mustang, couple Schecters. I do have a Paul Reed Smith. I have my Gretsch, which I love that thing. I bought it because it reminded me of Tom Petty, and this was just like right after Tom Petty had passed away. And then I've got a couple acoustics and a nylon and my keyboards, but back in the day, it would have been, 5 or 6 Gibson Les Pauls or Epiphone Les Pauls, and that would have been the run of the money. But it's so freeing just to be able to buy a guitar because you like the way it feels in your hand, right? or you buy it so you can put friggin' stickers all over the thing. It doesn't make a difference. You just start to buy what you enjoy, and it's freeing to be out of that stuff. And the whole genre thing is that's so freeing too, because now you can explore all these different avenues that you wouldn't explore normally because you're locked into a genre, or I'm a rock guitar player, or I'm a country guitar player, or whatever the case may be. But to be able to get out of a familiar genre and start exploring these other ones is just, man, I can't tell you how great it feels. And sometimes you'll really surprise yourself too, because you're writing something completely different and exploring these different ideas, and you'd be like, wow, I can't believe that I came up with that. One of these things will blow your own socks off, if that makes sense. That happens to me all the time. And more lately, I've been really loving to play, my keyboards. I just love how it sounds. I love composing on my keyboards. I mean, it's amazing. And then with the software these days, you can add strings and horns and whatever else that you feel like adding into your music. And so it's just a freeing thing. And probably the third biggest change of stuff that I've let go is the technical aspect of playing when it comes to playing music. For a long time, I held this belief in my head that you need to be able to play fast. Your solos have to be ripping. And you have to learn all these other skills in order to be a great player. You have to learn how to do pinch harmonics. You have to learn how to sweep pick, and you have to learn how to get good at legato and do all of these other things if you want to be good. You have to have your technical abilities, I guess, have to be way up here. And I've let go of all that. Instead, I've learned to embrace my strengths, not worry about my weaknesses so much anymore, but to embrace things that I'm good at. Like, I'm kind of a sloppy player, I'll admit it. When it comes to playing leads, I'm not the fastest. There's times where I can be, really fast and it sounds good, but for the most of it, I'm more of a melodic player, I guess. And when I do fast notes, it's just filler. And so, and I'm sloppy as can be. A lot of times I'll make mistakes. It kind of reminds me of like a lot of times when you listen to, Jimmy Page live, he was sloppy at times and choppy at times. And it's okay, especially depending on the genre of music you're playing. It doesn't, a lot of it doesn't really matter. But I've let go of that, and I started embracing the things that I like and started to embrace the things I'm good at rather than focusing constantly on, oh, I've got to learn this new technique, this new skill. And I love tapping. I love listening to tapping on the guitar, like Eddie Van Halen and stuff, but it's not my thing. My thing might be doing like a one tap note just for a little bit of subtle, I don't know, glam, I guess. But to sit there and tap out a whole thing on the fretboard like he does with that amazing speed, and it sounds really cool. That's not me. That's not how I play. And so I don't feel the need to sit down and go like, okay, 15 minutes every single day, 7 days a week. I need to learn how to tap. I got to practice and get good at it. It's one of those things where, oh, put it this way. There's times where you can enjoy listening to something, but it doesn't mean you have to do it. Like, I like reading books, but I'm not an author. And I like playing music, but I'm not the greatest teacher. Like, even when I've tried to make videos on here about, I can do a quick lesson on something that's basic, but if it's a complex thing that I'm trying to get across, it usually doesn't come out that great. And so I like to play to my strengths now and not so much the things that I'm not great at. And you don't have to do everything. Now, if like sweep picking or something like that is something that you really want to learn to do because you enjoy it and that's your thing, then yeah, you need to put in the time and the effort and learn that technique. But if it's not something that you care about that much, then let it go. Learn to listen to people who can do that stuff and enjoy it and not feel obligated like you have to learn it because that's the cool thing. Because what's really cool is you being able to express yourself on your instrument, not tied down to like, I have to have this name brand or this model guitar. I have to know all of these certain techniques in order to make great music because it's just not true. As long as it's coming from in here, you're having fun creating because that's the most important thing, man. I mean, when it comes to playing music, it's more important that you are having a good time doing what you're doing. You are having a blast playing your guitar, playing your bass, your piano, your drums, whatever instrument it is that you play. That's the important thing, is that you are having a great time. I mean, that feeling when you pick up your instrument and you sit down and you get in that zone and you lose all track of time. I mean, how great is that? That is so amazing when you can sit there and just play and you have no idea how many hours have gone by. That's what it's all about. That's what music should always be about. Not the gear, not all of the fanciest techniques that you can learn, but having a great time making music.